What's up? So, we have the headlamp, the overhead light on today. And two things. My hair is green. My hands are also kind of green. And I haven't posted in like 4 days. We're gonna hold on to that thought. Anthony, why haven't you posted in 4 days? Give you one reason. Heated rivalry. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it's been. So, we're going to talk about why heated rivalry has been so instrumental and important to me. We're going to derail in a couple points. I think first are a couple like general overall queer pieces of media, like little stars, if we want to call them that. First off, look at any like queer piece of media, mostly. Just the camera. A lot of them do not have happy endings at all. Like, I'm not even gonna try to pull out a statistic out of my ass, but most queer pieces of media do not have happy endings. And that is horribly depressing. So when a piece of queer media has a happy ending, it's amazing. Another piece is that both characters are represented really well. So a little segue here is I read the book. I read a couple of the books. I read the books, all of them. And my issue with the books is that the way that they present queer relationships, like the books were good, yes, but you could tell that they were written by a straight woman or by someone who just wasn't like a man loving another man in any context. Like you could tell that they weren't queer, like written by someone who was queer. Which that making queer media for the sake of making queer media isn't a bad thing, but you can definitely tell when queer media isn't made by a queer person, because it's not that it isn't represented right, it's just that it isn't represented in, I don't know, it's kind of like the whole coffee made by a they them barista, but it's like queer media. I guess you could call coffee queer media. But like there are just some things that when you like, it is a lived experience that you have, that you're just gonna write better than someone who hasn't lived through that experience. So there's that. Like the books, they're not bad in the books, and then furthermore the show, they don't represent queer people in a bad light at all. It's less about someone doing something morally evil and reprehensible and just being open about what you love, who you love. Well, I mean, the entire the show is being about like getting to that point. The books, they're about that. I think I look at parallels in Hannibal, right? Hannibal 2013 with Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter. They never kissed in the show. A lot of it was homoerotic subtext. And homoerotic subtext is fine, but you can only do so much in queer pieces of media with that, oh, they might be queer, but it's still plausible deniability, before it just feels like hiding in a closet again, like we've done the rest of our lives, or for most of our lives. That's a better rephrase. And so having a queer film, a queer show in which the characters, while they're not out to other people, have queer, there's the entire show is so inherently queer, and you see these experiences even though that they're still closeted in the show, that I think it just represents queer people in such a better way. When we're looking at the shows where it's they're definitely gay, but it's never directly said, that can be nice. It can be done artfully, artistry, whatever you want to say, but it's still so hard sometimes to not have someone just come out and directly say like, oh yeah, these characters are queer and they're in a queer relationship. So like that's like you have the three different types of queer films. There's ones where they're never going to directly say that the characters are queer, even though they are. You have one where they're open about the characters being queer, but it's either it has like a lot of misogynistic undertones, like, oh well, it's two men loving each other because the women are bad, which is not good either. Or like the bottom is like infantilized and it's like, oh, Big Daddy's gonna take care of you because you can't take care of yourself. And it's just like a weird dynamic, or like an uncomfortable age gap. And then you have the whole like they're on equal footing, and I feel like Shane and Ilya are on equal footing for so much of the show. Like they're not manipulating each other. They're bad at communication and they're bad at figuring this stuff out, but that's part of the character development and less of just being bad people. Like there's a difference between a morally great character, a character being a just genuinely terrible person, and then being like a morally interesting person. Not morally interesting, but being a interesting character that is real. When a character is morally gray, I think that's just most of the time kind of like a dump stat for I don't feel like fleshing out. Actually, okay, I take that back. So looking at Casbrecker from Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom, like that duology set, he's considered a morally great character. Like he's a crime boss, you know, he does crime for a living, but he still does good things, and so you could call that character morally great. I think that's a false thing. I don't think morally gray is, I think that could be examined further. But I mean, you have queer characters that are just genuinely horrible people. And then you have Heated Rivalry, which is kind of like, it's created this new gold standard of like queer characters in general and the way that you represent them. I think because Shane and Ilya, like, it's so give and take with them. You know, when one of them backs off, there's been so much space, you know. Part of that is like the excellent developing and portrayal of Shane being on the spectrum, of Shane just being like he's autistic. And that's not like a focal point, which is another reason why the show is so good. Like, he's an autistic character who can simply just exist and still be autistic. It's not like his main thing. I mean, it is, but it's not like, I'm like, oh, he's autistic. Oh my god. Like, he's just there. And he has autism. And you can see how that shapes his experiences without being like he's autistic. But it's give and take with them. You know, and they're always, the portrayal of their characters is just really good. And neither of them do anything to the other person where it's like a horrible thing to do, and then it's like, oh, it's so romantic you forgave him. Like, that didn't happen. It's just they are struggling to find themselves and figure out how they work together, but it's not in a sense that one of them has this abject moral failing and is a horrible person. Like, they're real people, and you see real people in this show. I think personally, the reason this show was such a novelty for me was because, like, part of it was because of this portrayal. Like, I grew up in the South, if you can't tell by the way I speak. I grew up in the South. I've lived in the South all my life. You know, I visit a very, very rural area at least twice a year where my extended family lives. And those, like, the South is not the easiest for a person to be queer in. And because of that, I really, like, there is this certain subset of queer shame that, like, even if I accept myself, the people around me, like, in my town, my city, on the streets, there is always going to be a very big subset of people who will hate me for just being myself. And so, looking at Shane and Ilya and Scott and Kip and all of their, like, dealings with the fact that they know that these people, that they could be horrible to them for who they are, and then they continue to be themselves anyway. It really is such a beautiful show, because I have not seen people like me before in anywhere. I used to figure skate when I was younger. And I loved figure skating. There was nothing like the feeling of just being free on the ice. It was chilly, but there was no wind. The only wind you felt was what was on your arms, because you were wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants on the ice, or shorts if you're insane. But I felt so free, and I used to love ice skating so much. And then I got older, and they're like, you can go full time, you can dedicate everything in your being to this, or you can quit. And it's still a very conservative sport. Ice sports, most sports, all sports, they're still very conservative, unless it's like T-boy wrestling. But even in, like, a lot of sports, they demand this rigor that some people just don't have. And I decided that if I had to choose between my identity and ice skating, I was going to choose my identity. And being who I am, there's no possible way for me to ever really compete in these sports again, like in a competition. And that the fact that there's this show about queer people being on the ice, and the books, even furthermore, seeing myself represented in people in the books was so important to me, because I didn't get that. I'm not gonna be able to do sports like they did. Like, it's not something I would ever get. But for them, they, like, you could see that they got it, and that people are starting to realize, hey, like, if they get it, we can have that too. Even if it's just a book, even if it's just a show, the portrayal of characters in positions that the portrayal of characters that have had experiences in life that I thought I would never get to have is so incremental. Like, it's just incremental to see people do things that you really really wanted to do. And, I love gay people. I love gay people. It's just really nice to watch a queer show that, it tears your heart out a little bit, but it's good. It's like soup for the soul. I love watching all the edits and the stuff everywhere, all the ships. I think it's very incremental, especially in times of, like, great tragedy. Just of great, like, stuff where you need to have a lot of willpower. to be able to, like, remind yourself what you're fighting for. And in this case, you know, the entire world's descending into fascism, but it's okay. We got heated rivalry in the back. So, it just means a lot to me. It just does. Like, you can look at that reason, you can turn it upside down, you can look at it left and right. Heated rivalry means so much to me. For so many reasons, besides the fact that some people are just like, oh, it's softcore porn. And it's like, I mean, sure, you could say that. You can say that. But, there's a lot to be said about the portrayal of the intimacy between them. Like, one, it's very tasteful. You know, enough to not make the people watching it kind of be uncomfortable. To not make the actors feel too uncomfortable, because they're actors, they're not people who signed up for that. I say that like it's not a negative thing, but that wasn't in the job description. Like, there's only so much that they are comfortable and willing to do as part of being an actor that differs from being a midnight star. We'll just say that. And it's kind of unfair to expect, you know, those two roles to be the same. So they handled navigating the fact that this is obviously a very charged series, with, you know, just being an actor. I think they handled that really well. I'm loving the way that the actors are handling their own privacy. I think the entire, like, if you watch Heated Rivalry and you don't come away with a more enlightened view about, like, the need for privacy in like, celebrities' lives, then you've not watched Heated Rivalry. But just, it's been such an incremental thing for people to see. Especially, I rib on the fact that straight women watch it a lot, but the fact that straight women are watching it and come away with this positive, like, yay, gay people, like, that's good, as long as you're not fetishizing the group that it's about, but instead you're realizing that these are people too, and that, yes, like, this is a community that you should stand by and support, because if you don't have queer people, you can't have Heated Rivalry, and there is always a reason to, like, voice your support for queer people, just like any minority, but especially queer people, and especially right now. But yeah, it's such a good show that represents people so well in the show, through lights, like through the lighting, through music, through colors, through just like the portrayal of relationships, of character dynamics, and it's done so well. And I'm so excited for season 2 and the possible season 3, and I'm so excited to see. I love seeing people's reactions to it, because I think visibility is so important, and being able to see these characters that I like, being able to see these characters do things that I wish I got to do, or that I wanted to do but wasn't able to, is so important, and I'm glad. It's such a good show, and I keep saying that, but it's Heated Rivalry. Like, it's just beautiful. I don't know. I say beautiful. It's tasteful. We're not even getting into, like, the yaoi brain rot pills or me being yaoi brain rot pilled and stuff. Just, like, tweaking out over all the edits and stuff. It's so great. But on the more, like, objective side of stuff, like, it is so important for visibility, and it is so important for good queer media, and it is so important for just, it's a good show. Like, visibility, media, and good portrayals. So yeah, it's my thoughts on Heated Rivalry. I mean, I could talk about the characters. But I kind of just wanted to focus on the general side of my review. So, I love everyone. Have a good night.